So Shared Parenting Scotland, we used to be Families Need Fathers Scotland. We've changed our name formally at the turn of the year, and for all sorts of reasons. But importantly, we do the same work as we did before. The name change makes us more obvious and inclusive. Our client base was pretty much 20% women, who'd be mums, who'd be grandparents, who'd be new partners, who'd be anyone involved with the family who had a question. It might even be brothers, sisters too. But since the lockdown, 45% of our new inquirers are women. We've got a new website, and we held a formal launch in Edinburgh in February 2020. Our aims is about promoting shared parenting, and this is about seeing mums and dads equally. It's about both parents being actively involved in raising their kids after separation, with both parents having equal status legally, culturally, societally. We want to achieve better outcomes for children and families following separation. When kids have contact with two safe and capable parents, they have better outcomes. That's what we're about. We support families, mums, dads, grandparents, new partners, anyone with a vested interest in the best outcomes and best interests of the child. And our focus is always on parents must be safe and they must be capable. So we are an independent Scottish charity with offices in Edinburgh and Glasgow. We do quiet lobbying. We work with the legal system. We work with Scottish Parliament. We work with local authorities. We offer support to families. We get our money through Scottish Government and trusts and other funds. Plus, we also accept donations. Our activity, our day-to-day activity, is about offering support and encouraging self-help and peer support. So we've held monthly meetings in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Dundee, Stirling and Paisley. Those have been replaced for the time being with online meetings, and we've merged those into a West of Scotland meeting, a Central Scotland meeting, an East and North and everywhere else. And the everywhere else will include people who are not in Scotland but whose children might be in court in Scotland, or parents who maybe live abroad, but again, they're still under the auspices of the Scottish Court. We answer the phone, we send emails, we offer one-to-one support. We'll do that at the moment on Zoom, we'll do that on Skype, we'll do that however we need to. My role explicitly is partner development and outreach, offering education, filling gaps, complementing the services that you guys do, and also offering advice, training, assistance at court. If you want to go to court yourself, we'll support you. If you want to have someone go to court with you, we'll offer that service too. The partnerships that we've got are wide and varied, and I apologise if you're not listed here, but we work within the Scottish Parliament. We work with local authorities. In education in particular, we're presented to over 100 leaders of early learning, primary heads, secondary heads in Glasgow, simply talking about parental rights and responsibilities and how those might be practiced and answering questions and challenges that people in school might have. Also working with social work. We will work tirelessly with any of the other complementary services, so mediation, relationship, Scotland, looking at PPC in Glasgow, Spark, Brightly, anybody who offers support and counselling to the family. Guys around the table here, we've got One Parent Families, Home Start, Sure Start, involved with you guys around the country. Also Quarriers, we've worked with Quarriers, funny enough, in Rochesy as well. Solicitors come around our table, they offer support to our groups, they offer free advice, and they will pick up test cases for us where we can see there's areas of the law that maybe need a bit of help, our clients need a bit of help, they will work on that too. And we also offer an advocacy. Advocacy in a very small way, because we're not about being well-meaning and well-intentioned but not having the detail. If we can signpost as we do, as which the next one's all about, then we will. And what signposting for us is about is that we want the people who come to us to get information, but many of them come at a loss, they don't know where to start. So we will tell them, advise them how to interact with services and how to get information to and from these services, in particular, how to get information to and from court and from solicitors, from the education department, from your local school, from the health perspective. Maybe it's GPs, maybe it's health workers, maybe it's health visitors, social work. And social work can be just getting information to and from the panel, to and from the children's reporter, to and from the local social work office. The contact centres, Relationship Scotland generally, PPC in Glasgow specifically, but we also have a guide to contact centres we can share with people. And the other agencies, clearly, we will signpost people to you, and I'm sure you guys get the capacity and have obviously signposted people back to us. We have guides, I mentioned there, one of the guides to contact centres, which is ready to publish. But if you don't know what a child welfare report's about or how it operates or what happens, we've got a guide for that. And if you want to go to court and represent yourself without a solicitor, we've got a guide for that too. Template letters, if you want to get information to school or from school, we've got school template letters for schools, for social work and for doctors. We are very much about personal development for people who come along looking for our services. We want people to consider that maybe they don't have all the answers, maybe they don't know everything, and if there's a lack or if there's a gap, or they're being accused of there being a lack or a gap in their skills, then maybe we can help them invest in themselves for the benefit of the kids. And the training that we've provided directly or in partnership at recent ones have been at communicating in difficult times, where we are just now, and I'm going to talk about that in a wee minute, managing stress, managing difficult situations. Through the High Conflict Institute, we're about to launch another training schedule on new ways for families, and that specifically is about dealing with high conflict parents or high conflict issues. Working with Fathers Network Scotland, we will signpost there, and we've also funded direct training in Glasgow and Edinburgh there too. And a project we did with Bernardo's in Dundee, looking at grief, trauma and loss specifically. If you're used to being your kids 7 days a week and the court decides that you're only worthy of seeing your kids 2 days a fortnight at alternate weekends, what are you meant to do with your head in the meantime? So you get 12 days or 12 nights where you would normally be doing your kids' tea, getting them ready for bed, getting them ready for the morning. What are you doing with your head? So we're looking at how we deal with the grief of not having your children open to you, what that means, what comes at you negatively in the meantime. So assisting there. And advocacy, one of the things that we'll say, again, if you present with issues, if you disclose to me you maybe have mental ill health, then I'll work with you to find support if you're not getting it. I will signpost to people at you. I will go to the advocacy services around Scotland and see if I can find a place for you. And where necessary, I will walk to these offices with you if that's what's needed. Family support, bringing people to your organisations if need be, and attending at meetings, whether it's bringing a parent into one of the Home Start offices, whether it's me going into a social work office with somebody, or attending and speaking at children's hearings at the children's panel. So we do that too. So here we are. Today's tips, what the main thing about is the coronavirus lockdown, looking at government, and this speech specifically about what the government's advice is and what the law is out there. So if we set aside some of the bad behaviour we've been experiencing where parents are not promoting the best interest of their children and holding on to their kids potentially unnecessarily, the government's advice is very clear. Healthy children should still be moving between healthy households if it's safe to do so. And what we're looking at there specifically is the house healthy? Are we still experiencing symptoms? Are there underlying health conditions for anyone in a child's household? If a child has two parents who live apart or live with granny or live with other people, we need to look at everybody in the household to make sure that everybody either is clear of the virus, is symptom-free, and we're not putting anyone at risk. In particular, we've got people in key roles, and where we do have people in key roles, there are often hubs or centres where kids can be dropped during the day. But the Lord President's advice is very clear that you should not be putting children into these hub services if there is someone available, usually the other parent, to look after them. So the government wants these hubs used minimally. And just to say that again, if there is another parent available to look after the child, rather than that child being put into a hub where it becomes potentially exposed, the other child, the child's other parent should be used. And the law, existing court orders, existing arrangements for contact should be maintained, again, if it's safe to do so. And it's good for the mental, emotional and physical health of both the children and their parents. So that's what the Scottish government is saying. It's also what the UK government is saying too. And the law in each case is the same. My boss Ian Maxwell and my colleague John Forsyth have contacts through the judiciary, through the government, and we have been speaking with, writing letters to, and sending emails to the Lord President, the Justice Secretary, the Children and Families Minister, Police Scotland, the head of the Scottish Courts and Tribunal Service, and the Education Minister, because this is a moving feast. Even now, we're looking at 6 weeks into lockdown. There are still questions that remain unanswered. We are still finding things that are changing and need to change. And when we're getting feedback from these, or we're having questions read in Parliament, posed by ministers, then we will update on those through our website, through our Twitter page, and through our Facebook pages. And if in doubt, you can check with us. If you can't find the answer to a specific question you might have, call me or call my colleagues. So one of the biggest issues we've got with, we call it in the general term, bad behaviour, where parents are not promoting the best interests of their children and maintaining contact because it is safe to do so, because there are nothing blocking it other than one parent's approach. What we might normally do is head to court or get solicitors involved. The problem we have is the family court, to all intents and purposes, shut down at lockdown, with the exception of hearing child protection and emergency cases only. As recently as Friday last week, there's been an announcement from the Scottish Courts Service that there is the potential for a resumption of family business. Of all the courts around Scotland, they have been merged into 10 functional courts. So, for instance, if you're in Stirling or Alloa, your case will now be held in Falkirk. If you're in Paisley, you're looking at Kilmarnock. If you're at Dunoon, you're looking at Kilmarnock. There's only 10 courts open, and where the court decides that a case will go ahead, it's being heard by telephone. But in order to get a case heard, we're now beyond just protection and emergency cases. We're now still looking to convince whoever triages each case, to convince them that a case needs to go ahead. But you need to convince a duty sheriff that a case needs to go ahead or it won't. And where we're finding this relaxation of the rules is really helping is for those individuals who don't have a good reason to withhold contact during the lockdown period. That is a circumstance to get back into court to have things heard again, but recognise the hearing will be over the telephone. And where we are at the minute, it's this is pretty much the premise of the pitch today. How do we get on? What can we do? Because fundamentally this is still about communicating, but we recognise the times are difficult. And what we are continuing to push is reinstate contact where it's safe to do so. At no stage should children or parents be put at risk. So the promotion of safety is paramount. For those who are used to having residential contact, we've got a template letter, which is about quiet persistence, which if you don't get contact this week, ask next week, but only if it's safe to do so. Because what we don't want is a parent being harassed when it's bad enough where, they've got the concerns about health and safety, but harassing somebody by letter is inexcusable. Harassing somebody by phone and email is inexcusable. But while it's safe to do so, be quietly persistent. Keep asking, because when we go back to court, if we need to go back to court, the resident parent and the non-resident parent will have to explain themselves to the sheriff that they hear. And where contact centres have been used, obviously that is about having independent childcare professionals supervising contact or enabling contact or even exchanging children at the door of the contact centre. That service is completely stopped. And the idea of a template letter for contact centres is that if you're just doing handovers, could you, in a reasonably worded, non-threatening letter, ask, well, instead of using the contact centre for handover, could we use the foyer at ASDA? Could we meet at the local police station? Could we meet somewhere where everybody feels safe? And Relationship Scotland are offering a digital postbox service where you can send letters, cards and recorded videos. They will vet them and then send on to the other parent for display to the child. One of the things we're also hoping that Relationship Scotland will do is potentially do a Zoom call between parent 1 with the child, parent 2 observing, and a Relationship Scotland member of staff in the middle still supervising to make sure that the communication is positive, is child focused. Because again, some contact is better than no contact. So we're promoting video calls, Skype calls, FaceTime calls. We're promoting telephone calls. But for each of these, one of the things that we will advise, don't just head in gung-ho. Plan ahead. Know what you're going to talk about, whether you're getting 5 minutes or you're getting 50 minutes. Plan ahead. Have some activities. Read a story. Talk about the family. Know what you're going to talk about before you get there, because if there is hostility between the two parents, if there is a concern that the child might be a victim of those, if we can keep it focused on the child, if we can say, well, we are going to read a story, or watch me, I'm going to have bubbles here, I'm going to do something with you on that, the more planning, the more potential for success. And when you can't parent your child directly, or indirectly having them in your company, or virtually over the internet, maybe what you can do is try and parent remotely. So include your child in communication. Send them an email, send them a card, send them a letter, and if you're concerned that they won't be got at the other end, send a copy to your own home. Because when your child does come back, whether that child's a baby who's going to grow up with that child's in their teens and doesn't understand or is being used to promote the lack of contact, the fact that you can demonstrate to them that you've been interested, they haven't been forgotten, and yet I did tell you about Granny's birthday, I did tell you about this, I did tell you about that, I did tell you about the other, then you can still feel that you're parenting your child, hopefully. Okay, that's my pitch. We have our contact details. Myself, I'm there, John's there, Ian's there, our office in Edinburgh, our office in Glasgow, and a switchboard. Whether that number actually rings in Edinburgh or Glasgow matters not. That number is diverted to whoever's on calls today, and as it happens, it's to me. It's usually me during this.